It's still 2 minutes left in the morning for me. Well, three, but it's definitely afternoon your time. Eleanor, how are you doing today?
Definitely.
You doing well? What's the weather like today? Is the sun out?
The sun is out, and I think there's a little bit of a breeze.
Nice. Yeah.
And we were having our roof redone this week, so fortunately there is no noise today,
Okay.
unless the doorbell rings and the dogs go crazy.
My brain goes in so many places when people tell me things. So my first question is, what are you getting done on your roof? Is it do you do asphalt shingles there, or what's the roofing
I
circuit?
think it's shingles.
Okay.
Um, the during the some of the storms there was hail damage, and so we were very fortunate to have it covered by insurance.
Oh, good. All right. Well, we're already talking about roofing tiles, so let's get back on track. So this is our second episode of But Wait, There's More with Dr. Eleanor. Anyone that hasn't tuned in before, the intent is two friends getting together, me, the sort of, let's say, newly awakened spiritual fellow from the last couple of years, and then Dr. Eleanor, who's, this has just been your jam forever. So I get to learn by asking questions, and the audience out there gets to gain from your experience. So we had a brief chat earlier, and I think today we were going to talk a bit about Reiki, Kundalini, and then just see where things go from there. If
Mm-hmm.
you're still good with that, before I tell you about what my experiences have been, I would like, I was hoping you could describe, um, well, whatever Kundalini experience that stands out. I'm pretty sure I know where you're going to go with that, and or anything you else want to say about that, um, because that's what's on my mind right now.
Okay. I'd be curious for you to tell me what you think your Kundalini experience was before I tell you mine so it's not contaminated.
Fair enough. Maybe I should say what I think Kundalini experience, what a Kundalini is. It to me, it seems to be this energetic serpent-like energy that starts at the root and effectively at the end of the day opens your head up like an antenna to channel in information. And it can
You know
be,
the caduceus,
I've never
the
heard that word
medical
before.
symbol of the two
Oh,
snakes that wind?
yes.
That's Kundalini energy moving from the sacral center up through the head.
Okay. Yeah. So I never heard that. I never heard of it referred to as the caduceus, but yeah, I definitely went down that path when I was experiencing things. And what I've been experiencing a lot of, and in various different forms, is I can actually almost wring out my spine like a towel, like a wet towel, when I'm, for example, with CBD in my system. It allows me to really stretch, and I can feel myself actually like breaking apart fascia inside my body. And sometimes it comes out like a burp, sometimes it goes out other ways, but at the end of the day, it seems to be every time I do that, my body kind of straightens out a little more. And I'm getting to the point where I was very inflexible before. So my flexibility now is just seems to be well beyond what I thought I could do. And if depending on what I'm doing, sometimes I'll feel a fluid like just moving up my back, almost like a thermometer,
Mm-hmm.
lead in the thermometer, right? And there have been,
Cerebrospinal fluid.
yeah. So I can almost do that on command. And what I've read about other people having Kundalini experiences, it's more like they're hit by a bolt of lightning and everything changed forever, but it was like a one and done. Is that the same thing in a really severe version, or is like I'm just curious? So that's what I understand so far. All I can tell you is there have been times where I felt what feels like a tail in my butt, like I can actually feel something like energetically twiggling,
Moving.
moving. I have on many occasions my neck starts wanting to adjust itself. Like I'm not driving that notion.
Right.
I'm letting my body, and I've actually had nights at our office where, and of course with a little plant medicine, because it seems to just amplify it, I just let go. Maybe it's just making me less self conscious of what I'm doing, but I'll let my body take me around the office. And there have been times where I'll be like, why am I putting my hand against the cupboard and twisting my neck? And all of a sudden, I get like the perfect adjustment, like a chiropractor knew what they were doing. And I'm not actively mentally focusing on that. My body is saying, put me here, allow me to do this.
So when that happens, whereabouts is your consciousness? Inside or outside?
Uh, could you elaborate? That's a good question. I don't know how to answer that.
Well, I think you already answered it. You have your consciousness inside your body, but your mind is not present.
That's interesting. I'd say my mind is present, but I was letting
It's
go.
observing, but it's not active.
Yeah, I wasn't interfering with it. Yeah.
So you were allowing your body to move based on your intuitive need without the mind saying, what are you doing? The mind could say, why is my hand up there?
Hmm.
But your body said, then move your head. So there's what you're experiencing is the infinite wisdom of the body when you listen to its intelligence.
Okay, so many things on that. My body is way more intelligent than I am. It's literally stubbing my toe sometimes to avoid heating up an argument that didn't need to be. But I still get in the way of it all the time. And in fact, uh, so I'm a pickleball fan nut, and it's because at times I've seen what my body is capable of, and then other times I'm just completely average, and I don't know how with concentration or focus to maintain that state because I would like to perform really well in pickleball. Like there are shots I make where people kind of look at me like they don't understand what they just saw, and then there's other times where I'm just like letting my partner down because I'm terrible. So I'm so inconsistent. But I know, so sometimes I'm just like trying to be like get out, like just react to the ball and not think about it. But the nuance between the two is so fine that I can't seem to stay in that state. I'm in and out of it every 2 seconds. It's very
Have
frustrating.
you set your intent to stay in the state you want to stay in?
Uh, yeah, I try. I've tried various forms. One, I'll wear a silicone ring and twist it to try to like be like now's the time to focus. I've learned to put my tongue on the top of my mouth. I think it was called the baga, and it was about intention of focus. But when you're in a place where, and like I know I'm very acoustic, there's just people and sounds like the distractions come and go. That it's even my intention to be focused can be like snapped out just by
Have you considered earplugs?
I have. So and I tried this last night. Went out to some games. These are these Jawbone headphones because I tried earplugs, but then I can't hear the ball, so I lose a lot of the intuitive needs I need to even sense where it is. So these are Jawbone earpods, right? So I put these on, I can hear what's going on around me, and the sound is going through my bone into my head versus into the ears. I already love these. I'll never use AirPods again. Um, I was trying all sorts of things last night. I was trying binaural various frequencies like focus, classical music, rock music, and I can easily also just turn it on and off between things. But it only helped like 10%. It was just so much I seem to just take in so much information. The frustrating part is like I can get there and I don't know how I get there. There's some
The
sort of
next
like
time, the next time you're there, pay attention. And the next time you're there, say to yourself, this is where I want to be.
mm-hmm.
Higher self, keep me here, and put yourself into a self hypnotic state to go back there.
Right. So very clean language and intent. Um, Put That's interesting. I never thought about myself being in a hypnotic state while I'm playing pickleball. To me, I'm sitting on a chair.
No, I'm not saying you're going to be in a hypnotic state. I'm
Mm,
saying you can use the suggestion to be in that state to have your unconscious know the state you want to be in when you're
mhm.
playing pickleball. And then it's automatic.
Okay.
You're not going to accomplish it, Sean, by thinking about it.
No, I know, but
Because what you're asking your body to do is what you describe doing when you do your funny movements and adjust yourself.
mhm,
So, what you are basically needing to do is give your body permission with spirit to take over.
mhm,
So, if you think about the 8 design charts that I use,
right.
then really what you're talking about is focusing in on the spiritual physical worlds and taking all of the mental, emotional mental out of the equation.
Mhm,
Because as soon as you start thinking, you lose it.
right. Okay. Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna have to sit with that for a bit.
So one more thing.
Mhm. Yep.
Um, you're a drummer.
Yes.
When you're really into your drumming, you're gone.
Uh huh.
When you're playing pickleball, you want to be gone like you're drumming.
Okay. Let me respond to that.
It's the same energy.
Yeah, I need to respond to that though, because when I drum, there's two Sean drummers as well. There's Sean, the drummer that seems to be worried about his performance and is very normal, but no risks. And then there's the other one that I've only ever seen or felt with plant medicine. So at that point, I'm like, I don't want a crutch. I want a tool set. Um, but it's like it's different. Like the mind is somehow always
Well, Sean, here's where you need to shift the mental world thinking.
okay.
Once you've had an experience, whether it was on mushrooms or something else, uh, you have the muscle memory and the trace to go back there.
Mhm.
So you don't need to keep medicating to recreate the conscious state that you want to be in.
That's perfect. Because that's funny. I've come to that conclusion before, but it's almost like I forget or I don't believe. Right? It's hard to believe, and so it's difficult to get back there. But that's been my experience. Is kind of once it's been proven to myself.
Have to ask, and you have to be grateful.
Mhm,
The two keys. And so when you move into a situation where you know the consciousness state you want to be in, you have to ask for it.
well,
You
that's
have to set your intention clearly
right.
and not deviate.
Okay.
And the mind is slippery.
Hmm.
Oh, you can't do that without the drug. Why don't you just take a little stuff? It'll make it easier for you.
Hmm.
Don't fall for that.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I know, and I get that. So let's just walk through a scenario. If I go onto the pickleball court, I'm gonna play a match or something, and um, the scenario is you get there, you're going to set your intention, you've done your warm up, but then there's just all these distractions. There's heat of the moment. There's you've taken a shot, you've missed it. Now I'm very good at letting go of the frustration around making a mistake. It's just like a goldfish back. It's the what is the tool or mechanism I can use that's quick and in the moment, that if I fall out, I can pull myself back in? I guess I could probably answer that question a bit myself. One is I already know that I can do it, so just being grateful that I can and getting myself back to it.
Take a breath.
Yeah. Okay. So, in any particular way to take a breath? Like, is it do I want to consciously come up with a way that I do this way?
You
And
could pot it.
yeah, and just for others that are listening, you're talking about point of creation, point of destruction, the clear language, clearing statement,
Well, it's in access consciousness bars.
right?
Right and wrong, good and bad. POC, point of creation, and POD, point of destruction. All nines, shorts, boys, POVADs, which is the points of uh, what you avoid and deny, and beyonds.
Hmm.
So you can just say POC and POD, and or you could say release.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, of course, because even pock and pod is something that, like, once I know that it's effective.
The other trick is on the side of the hand, right where the indentation is a psychological reversal point.
Here.
Yep,
Okay.
you just tap it.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So, a couple of things on that. One, I was a bit familiar with various tapping because I was on a hypnosis course, and it was used a lot for, like, once you cleared, you wanted to kind of lock it in or anchor it. Um, oh no, where'd the other thought go? It's gone. Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I have been pock and potting it for the last 2 weeks, like crazy, but only to myself, only in my head, and occasionally on the pickleball court. But then I would, like, I don't know, forget. So it's a good reminder that I actually have sort of been assembling the tool.
Tools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me give you a little history about the tapping.
Okay.
Most people are not aware of it. Uh, Tapping was brought in uh, to the culture recently by Roger Callahan, and it was called thought form therapy. I studied it with him in, I think, 1982,
Wow.
and it was not known. And his protocol at the time was rather complex. You needed to muscle test to see which points to tap. And then um, one of his students decided that you didn't need to go through the whole protocol of determining the sequence in which to tap, that if you followed a general sequence, it accomplished the same thing.
Hmm.
So he released it free and called it the emotional freedom technique. And because it was free, it took off. And Roger, interestingly enough, began working with heart rate variability and was able to tell from your voice vibration about your heart rate variability and use tapping to rebalance and basically introduce the concept of heart math. He was a brilliant psychologist, and the tapping was originally developed to get rid of phobias.
Hmm.
And you could get rid of a lifelong phobia in one tapping session,
Hmm.
which I did with many people. So, um, tapping is a useful tool. And there is a video called Tapping Play, which was done for children. And it's animated and it's cute, and it becomes like a worm in your head.
Hmm.
And the statement that most people ultimately drill down to when you tap and you tap and you tap and you go to the base of what they want is in the tapping play videos. And it's, I am free, being me, I'm a happy child.
Every kid has
And
growing up. That would be do a lot of good.
It's still does a lot of good for adults
Hmm.
when they tap, and they ultimately tap to I I am free being me. I'm a happy child.
Absolutely. I think a
So
lot of adults are not open to even hearing that. It sounds too simple in a world today full of fears and anxieties where it's
it
like,
really is very simple.
I agree. I agree totally. Um, okay, you said so many things there. You said the word or phrase heart math.
Mhm.
What exactly is heart math?
Heart math is a technique that's been developed because we can measure heart rate variability. So when you're in what's called coherence, which is a state of alignment, inner alignment, where the heart rate follows a very regular sine rhythm. And it looks like a pretty wave. And if it's jagged and all over the place, your heartbeat is not in coherence. And it shows stress and discomfort, basically. So, heart math is there's a sensor that goes on your ear and, picks up your heartbeat. And there's also an app called Global Coherence where you can do it using your finger on your camera. It's measured by the galvanic skin response, which is, picked up by the camera or by the sensor on your ear. And you can do it with other people. It's well known that when a group of people meditate together, for example, they go into a state of coherence.
Mhm.
And you can do it with a group. So I've done it with some groups to test whether or not doing a technique before and after you measure coherence helps the group increase the coherence
Mm.
or the individuals in the group to increase their coherence. And it's a well documented technique. The computer program for it has some apps where, for example, as you move into increased coherence, the black and white garden gets colored in. So it's sort of a fun way to practice coherence. You shift your consciousness to put yourself into coherence.
Fascinating. Are you are you familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza and some of his work?
Uh-huh.
I was talking. My friend Tracy was saying that he now has set up sort of like various regions, or they're scanning the collective consciousness of different places on the planet and seeing the levels rise because people are meditating.
Well, what you might be interested in is the FLFE program.
Okay,
Uh, there's a link on my website under the affiliate links
okay,
to FLFE. You can get a 2-week free trial,
yeah.
and they use Greg Braden's frequencies. So I have it on my phone, I have it on my Noble Shield, this, and I have it on our house. And the FLFE will take it up to, I'm looking for my app. So it takes it up, it's usually set, it usually is at 570 on the Greg Braden scale of high frequency consciousness.
Hmm.
You can get it up to 600. I'll put it on right now, see if you all experience a difference. Um, you can put it on for 2 minutes and start a boost at 850. And you can also put it, for example, on a water bottle if you wanted.
Oh, to kind of like re-energize the water.
Yeah. And it puts a protective shield around your home, protects you from EMF, and boosts the energy frequency.
Hmm.
And they do it on Google Maps.
Hmm.
Good technology. It's been around a long time. We experienced something like that when we lived in California, I want to say 20 years ago. It was pretty expensive. You'd go and put a photograph on a machine, and it would put a high frequency around whatever it was you were photographing.
Right. You've kind of, I think, connected a couple of dots for me here. Um, everything is energy, frequency, and vibration, right?
Right.
I think, had that right. And then, um, everything has an energy. Um, Plants, people. I never thought of consciousness itself having a frequency, and that people could be in different frequencies within that, right? But that's honestly what I seem to be experiencing is you can almost see it in pockets. People are in this frequency, they're in that one, that sort of energetic that's there.
People generally have their own frequency. So if you look at the aura, it looks pretty consistent for people. If I look at your aura, it's usually pretty consistent.
Okay,
Um,
you're gonna have to elaborate on that too, because like when you describe
well,
my aura,
I see auras all the time.
right?
So I usually don't look because it's too distracting. But if I do look, I see different levels, outside of a person.
Hmm.
And usually a person's frequency is pretty stable. Um, what you experience when you're describing some of your shifts in consciousness is you're shifting your frequency.
Hmm.
And you're then shifting worlds.
Yeah. Okay. All that makes sense. I want to stay on this topic. This is super interesting. Um, what do I want to ask first? First, um, can anybody see an aura? Is it something
Hmm.
that you tap into? Okay.
If
And
it's
then,
not conditioned out.
right. Because I don't
Uh,
feel that I can. I can pick up other nuances for sure. Like certainly my right ear can pick like the slightest warble in someone's voice, and I know what to ask next. But I don't. And I seem to have lots of vision issues too. Like we've talked about how I've had, it's hard to focus. Um, so I don't know what to do with that. But yeah, and so for example, just being completely selfish, if you were to describe my aura right now and what you see, what do you see and what does that tell you?
I see that you're stressed.
Hmm.
Um, it's in your aura, and it has to do with the mental world.
Yeah, always.
And I can see um, that there are some separations
Hmm.
between the chakras in the flow. Um, I don't want to look at events, that would be too intrusive. Um, but I can see where between the levels of your aura, there's some rough edges.
All true. So, but let me go back to the first one. You can see I'm stressed. Now, by that, do you mean in general as a health theme for now, or do you mean today? Because I would answer those questions very differently. So, I'd be curious what you are interpreting.
What I'm seeing is that there's this level of consciousness, and then underneath that level of consciousness is attention with the things that are not being allowed to surface, but are being worked on in the emotional world.
Hmm.
So it's that you don't want to be emotionally reactive, but
Hmm.
there are still parts of you that are reacting. And
Yep.
so you're struggling to transform those without reactivity.
I mean, yeah.
And so I picked that up in the aura. It almost looks a little bit more like, if there's no stress, it's just like a cloud flowing and fluffy and pretty. And when there's a little bit of stress, it looks like the edges are a little bit muddy,
Hmm.
almost like if a photograph is a little blurry. And so the energy isn't having a clear channel through because there's thoughts getting in the way of the trust that you don't need to do something that you're not doing. So that's what it looks like.
Okay.
And I
Um,
have no idea what's going on in your life that would be that way, but it's that the worlds are sort of trying to work it through.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, everyone's got a story, and I've got more than I think my fair share, but maybe we all feel that way. Um, it's very interesting. I don't know where to go with that, but I want to say, don't be afraid to ask any questions at this point of me. I'm pretty open book. Um, but yeah, I've been working through. Like I blew open my throat chakra the other day. I know I did. I felt it. It was violent physically. So I don't know. So and I, a how do you see it? Do you see it with your eyes? Is it in your mind's eye? How do you see that and still focus on other things? That makes me that thinks considering how much information I take in, I almost don't want more information. So I couldn't imagine. It feels like a burden than a gift, or it sounds like a burden than a gift.
It was a burden until I learned how to control it.
Right.
You know, one of my experiences, um, a past life experience, um, I was literally paralyzed for 3 hours while the energy was coming through my body. And at the end of it, I was changed. And the next day, when I was in my office seeing patients, I knew everything about them. And I could look at someone. I remember sitting in a dentist's chair in Los Angeles, and it was, you could look down. He was on the ninth floor or something. I could look down and see people on the street. And I remember looking and knowing everything about the person who was walking by. And then, the turning point for me was sitting at the airport with my mother in Phoenix and knowing that the person at the next table was going to die in 24 hours. And I didn't want to know that.
Hmm.
What do you do with something like that? It's intrusive. So it took me about 5 years to learn how to control it. When I choose to see, I see it with my eyes. And I can also do some healing with my eyes.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't usually look
So you,
because,
yeah, you can control it like an on-off switch, I guess. Like,
yes, I
please.
learned how.
Okay. So while you're describing that, it reminds me of a quote I saw like 2 days ago on Facebook, and it was a quote by Ra, and it said, "LSD is how right variable people see the world," or something like that. Like, and so I'm a at least in traditional human design, I'm this PLL DLL. I'm a quad left, and it's described as the shark, like just intense focus, but like all over the place. And that's that's how I seem to take in information. Is it's just it comes from every direction, and so the focus is so focused that I struggle with what is the broad focus that I want to be focused on. Actually, that was interesting just working through that. But um,
Why do you even put energy on it?
uh,
Um,
that's a good.
what would happen if you just trusted yourself?
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for that. That has been going on a lot too, of just self-imposed labels or others' labels or things I've read and accepted to be true when I know that once I experience something, I know what I know when I know it, or the phrase you keep repeating in the webinars, and I'm always.
I've never really used psychedelics.
Mhm.
Um, I remember when I was in my graduate program, I was a research associate, and one of my colleagues was talking about taking LSD. And I remember looking at him and saying, I wouldn't ever do that because I like my consciousness just as it is.
Mhm.
Why would I risk it for an experience?
Fair enough. In my experience, I didn't like my consciousness. Like when I went to experience that sort of shamanic weekend that introduced me to human design and changed my world forever, um, I was almost gone. So that was my sole chosen catalyst. I mean, I can remember going there and surrendering my phone and being like, if this doesn't work, I don't know what will. And that
Mm-hmm.
was terrifying at the time as a father and a husband, and it was one hell of an experiment. So worth
Well,
it.
apparently it worked.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we still got about half an hour left, I think, but I want to check on with you with time.
Um,
I'm enjoying
it's
this.
Let me double check my schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, I have about
20 minutes.
yeah, 20 minutes.
Cool. At this point, I don't even think we need to diverge topics, but I want to kind of come back to where we started, which was sort of Kundalini, your experience. I
Well,
will say too, because I've talked to lots of people about this lately. A lot of people that I'm meeting that feel they've or know that they've got sort of certain abilities talk about how they had it when they were younger, they remember having it, and then spirit source told them that they weren't ready to use it or something. Is almost always what I hear. I don't remember the majority of my life.
mm,
Like when I say I can only remember a couple of events from probably some of the years of my childhood, I don't mean I can describe the whole event. I just mean I remember it even happened. Like I don't remember waking up. Like I think I'm always going back to I think I somehow had a very early sort of disassociation and just learned not to trust my body, I guess, right? Because it coming back to that whole when it's present, things are good. Um, like I just don't remember, and the only time I remember it is in plant medicine experiences where I'm sitting there and I'm going through a journey, and now all of a sudden I'm like almost like flying through neighborhood streets, and at times I'm like looking for a trauma, and so I will already be in touch with my body. I'll wait for some area of my body to twitch. I open up my metaphysical book, right elbow. I read what it says, and I'm immediately transported in my mind's eye to some event that's always popped up. Like if I'm having an interaction with somebody, like why does that common Shaw Circle street corner where there's a bike, why does that image appear? Because it seems completely harmless. But when I get that reminder and I'm doing that work in that time, I all of a sudden I can roll the film back like 90 seconds and be like, oh, right before that, this person said blah. And I was like, it was the core wound, right? Of something.
mm-hmm.
But it seems like other people don't haven't experienced life like that. The people can recall all sorts of stuff in their life, and for me, it's like it's completely whitewashed until it's triggered. Um,
And when you think back to what you do remember, what age did your memory turn on?
What do you mean by that?
Do you remember getting married?
As soon as you ask the question, yes. I
Do you
remember.
remember going to school?
Yeah, didn't like it.
Do you remember your first job?
Uh, there was so many, but probably. Yeah, yeah, a little gas station. Yeah.
Okay, so if you, a good thing for you to do would be journaling, and but in a very specific way. One of the most powerful journaling exercises, I think, is looking two of them, stepping stones, where, for example, you could look at what you love doing now and look at all the stepping stones that you went through to get there.
Hmm.
Connect the dots, the Steve Jobs dots, right? The other journaling that I think is so valuable is paths taken and paths not taken. So we, in our life, because we live in four worlds, there are points where we have to make a really hard decision. In my life, it was probably the hardest decision I ever made was divorcing my first husband. And it took 2.5 years to make that decision.
Mhm.
I was 28 years old and I had two kids. Um, and I had finished my PhD. I had volunteered for a postdoc because we didn't need the money. And I was finishing my postdoc and about to get licensed. And at that point, I decided to divorce him.
Hmm.
And I didn't take anything. So I was a single mom with no income in Chicago going into winter with not even a winter coat.
Hmm.
Very important decision point in my life because I chose spirit over the mental world very clearly. And when I look at my ex husband now, it's very clear that the breaking point was our values,
Mhm.
that my value over everything was the spiritual well being of myself and my children, and his overriding value was to be super wealthy and powerful. And
Right.
he is. He ended up being the head of a medical school and he sits on all kinds of boards and he has a lot of money. And I went the other path and made my spiritual world the most important thing in my life. And when I heard a voice tell me to go to India, a voice tells you to do something, you do it.
Mhm.
So I followed spirit. And the day and time, my astrologer told me I'd meet someone who'd be in my life the rest of my life. I met Marvin.
Hmm.
46 years ago, at the day and time, Katie told me I'd meet someone.
Yeah.
And our spiritual values are 100% aligned.
Yeah.
So, we make, and, when I did the stepping stones way back in my divorce years, it was, did I make the right decision? What would my life have been had I made a different decision?
Mhm.
And when you begin to look at your life that way, you begin to recognize the integrity of the soul. It's a very important exercise to journal with.
Okay, so I want to go right back to the journaling thing because and getting messages from source. I can't tell you how many times people have looked me in the eye and say, "Hey, you should try journaling," and to the point where it's like clearly it's you're channeling telling me like, dude, this is what you need to do. So I'm getting that message. Um, I didn't. It never occurred to me that there were approaches to journaling. In my mind, journaling was find a piece of paper or something and just let it come out. And I'm
No, the other really powerful technique um, is Jung's active imagination. And the journaling came out of the Jungian active imagination, where Jung would have his patients uh, interact with the characters of the dream. So you and I've used it to communicate with my animals, especially ones that have died
oh, like after you died.
or people who've died. And you write whatever your question is or whatever your statement is. So Sean might write, I'm curious about how I could be more focused in the um, physical intelligence that I need to be really good at pickleball. Um, can you give me some guidance? And you let your higher self answer. So you write down Sean and you put what your statement is, and then you put HS for higher self or however you call it, and then let the answer come. No mind.
Okay, excellent. That gives me something to. Now I understand how to spark the source of the journal entry. And I recall you saying many times, I think for when you channeled, I guess, the four worlds. No, it was something. No, it was something else. Where you said, "Of what am I afraid?" I mean, that's a question you're asking of the higher mind too. Then, right? Is
Yes, and I also have also asked, for example, when I broke my clavicle, I said, okay, God, what is so important for me to learn that you would knock me over in my loved ocean?
mm-hmm,
And the answer was you're taking on and shouldering too much responsibility. Delegate. I was president of the Southern California Society for Clinical Hypnosis, and nobody except my daughter and I were doing the work. Everybody was happy to come teach,
mm-hmm.
but we had to do all the CE and all the paperwork and prepare all the lectures and the brochures, and I finally stopped. I said, I'm not doing this anymore. When your higher self or God or divine or who you call it speaks to you, if you take action, everything falls into place. And I actually, Marvin went to, I then, after I broke my clavicle, after we moved from California to South Carolina, I took both dogs out at once. And a stranger dog came by, and my dogs pulled me over, and I broke my arm and gashed my head. And again, I said, what's so important? And it was important for me to learn uh, not to take those risks. But also, the orthopedist said to Marvin about 2 weeks ago, oh, I remember your wife. She healed a really bad break in record time. I don't know how she did it. And I broke my arm here, and my clavicle actually should have had surgery and never healed in alignment. But I have full mobility, and I'm a swimmer.
Mm-hmm. Do you so
So
do you still have any pain there or anything with that?
nothing, no.
Nothing's all gone.
I
Yeah.
have full strength, full mobility. When I did physical therapy after the triple break in my upper arm, um, he dismissed me in like 2 weeks.
Hmm.
So the Reiki healing, the visualization, the talking to God and saying, okay, what do I need to learn? What's
Hmm.
so important here?
It's so cool hanging with another person that knows that they can interact with their body and heal their body with their mind. And because I have done it 20 different times in 20 different ways. And then thinking about when you were talking about like what your spirit told you, delivered a message through your shoulder. I stubbed my foot yesterday quite violently on the stairs. And then later in the day, when I was like playing it back, which normally I wouldn't do, I noticed that the entire situation was so different than it had been in the past. So I'll paint a picture for you. Um, Wendy and I have been almost married 29 years, almost 31 together. Um, if I stub my toe or slip falling up the stairs, it hurts me. She thinks it's the funniest thing she's ever seen in her life, right? A little bit triggering, actually. Um, but yesterday, we were having a disagreement. I was standing my ground. I was holding my boundaries. I was like, this is like in this moment, this behavior that's been going on forever is not okay with me. And so they got that friction between that would exist, right? A trigger point. And I now recognize that it's usually in the other person because I'm sort of more calm and situational. And so they're always describing me as being emotional. And I'm like, looking back, I'm like, no, no, it's not me, it's you. But I got frustrated and I was like, ah. And I just started to go walking up the stairs and I slammed my left foot right into the stair and it hurt like it was just like a lightning bolt. And in the past, out would come an F bomb and the laugh. This time I just stopped, paused, held the pain. I was like, I don't want my foot to feel this pain ongoing because it's going to somehow lock in that negative moment. So I just started breathing through it and it took about a minute and I just patiently did that. Wendy didn't laugh. She just stood there and kind of observed. And like I just did all that. I had already known that that was my plan, I guess, and I had already accepted that my body was basically saying, "Don't keep fighting this fight." Because what? Oh, that was the part I left out. I was getting cocky, right? I was like, I dealt with the boundary. What now? It's like a craving. Like, what can I go after next? I'm in the alpha position, and
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I don't want to do that, but when you've had 30 years of disagreements and they escalate and escalate and you learn the bullshit that creates dissonance, it's so easy to go back to like, this is my moment. I gotta recoup a couple of things I lost in the last battle,
Mm.
right? So like I deconstructed that all like through yesterday, and then I'm just able to kind of assemble it here based on your prompting. That's really cool. So
I would recommend that you do a journal
mhm,
about it. And you say, I noticed a shift yesterday in how I dealt with stubbing my toe and
mhm.
how Wendy dealt with it. I'm wondering if you could shine some light on how I can further shift my consciousness
Yeah.
and let it get anchored.
Can I ask your opinion? I I just don't like writing. And I've had one person said to me once, "Oh, you journal with images." But that takes a lot of time. I create these like things. But I think I could journal via audio. And one thing I've been playing with is with Chat GPT, you can hit this little microphone and you talk back and forth to it. And I feel like I'm talking to myself, like it's like a therapist because I'm
No,
not.
don't let it answer.
No,
Oh,
fine.
no. Uh-uh. No, that would be very bad.
Okay,
It would be internally destructive.
because
Uh,
it's getting outside interference from its
it's
database.
not you. It's not your soul.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
And you want to access the deep unconscious that you ordinarily in normal consciousness don't access.
Hmm.
And it's not something to take lightly. Chat GPT can be great, but it's being overused and
Oh,
it's formulaic.
yeah. Yeah.
So, I use Grammarly to check my grammar, but more often than not, I dismiss when it's changing. I don't let anybody edit my stuff because it needs to be my voice.
Hmm.
And even sometimes changing the sequence of words changes the nuance of meaning behind the words, and it doesn't ring true. So, I'm really obsessive about that stuff.
Yeah.
Because when I write, which I consider myself more of a writer than a speaker, when I write, I'm not writing, it's coming through me.
Hmm.
And it generally comes through exactly as it's meant to come through. So I don't dare change it
Hmm.
because who am I? That would be my mind, not my spirit. So I'm going to need to get off because I have a 4 o'clock
Yep.
client. But I guess I consider the spiritual self pure, and I consider the other worlds able to skew our perspective. And so my commitment is to the integrity of the soul and to never disempowering that component of the self.
Hmm.
Uh, I say in the webinars, the spiritual is the unified integrative field of consciousness. And I've spent years as in training as a Jungian analyst, as a Freudian analyst, as a um, sex therapist, as you name it, I've done it in the field of psychology. And the basic key, talk to people's soul. That's the healing power.
Hmm.
And whatever is your issue, you have access to your own soul.
Hmm.
So listen to it. Ask for it to speak to you.
Hmm.
It's not rocket science, it's not a formula. Everyone's unique, everyone's voice is unique. If you don't want to write, use your voice memo.
Hmm.
Sean says, and hire whoever it is says, and then have it transcribed.
Right, and it's the looking for the curiosity of the question, right? Tell, yeah, okay. Well, I'm going on vacation, and seems like the perfect time and place to do that. So I'll probably be pinging it for a couple of tips, but I come back to that. But
And how long are you gone?
it's a 10-day all inclusive, and
Great.
I'm just gonna water and oh, Richard Beaumont. I had a reading with him once, and he suggested if I can go to ancient sites, I should take off my socks and shoes and stand there and pull in info.
Feel it. Mm-hmm.
So there's lots of Mayan stuff there, I guess. How to like? What do you mean? Feel it? And I don't want. I don't, I'm
Just, Sean, don't overthink it.
yeah.
Go, take your shoes off. Actually, when we went to Israel last June for our grandson's wedding and we were on tour, I walked through the museums barefoot.
Mm. And
And,
like,
you know,
hmm?
so go, take your shoes off, stand, and meditate and see what you feel. And don't judge it and don't predispose it.
Hmm. Cool. Well, I'm definitely
Okay, I better go. I have
okay.
3 minutes.
Okay, great to see you. I'm going to hit the little button here to make it look like I did some fancy editing on the end. We'll go with this one this time. And just hang out here for a couple seconds after I end here.
Oh, there are two messages from the audience.
Oh, do you want to address them quick?
Uh, I don't really have the time,
Okay, yeah.
but
No,
if anybody wants to email me, they're free to do so. ehp@noblesciences.com.
perfect. Okay.
Okay.
See you later, Eleanor.